Hi, I'm Paul Bedford, Business Growth Specialist, and today I'm with Simon Bollon from We Are Boutique. Simon, fantastic to meet you. I love your premises here.
Thank you very much.
How long have you been here?
Just over 2 years. We took it in the summer of 2 years ago, and then it was a bit of a shell. So we had to do a lot of the work that you see downstairs, and then we moved in the October time.
That must have been quite fulfilling. I'm a bit of a renovation nut.
Yeah,
I do
okay.
like to
Well,
see ruined places done up.
It was fulfilling, but it was more terrifying for me. I think the fulfilling bit for those that were more heavily involved in the design and so on, it was more fulfilling for them. For me, it was just a little bit terrifying in terms of the costs.
Yes, of course.
So we went from a room that was about this size to I think it was about 8 times.
Gosh, that's big, massive.
Giving us the opportunity for scale and growth, but also we have so many meetings. We've got full meeting rooms, a boardroom, and so on. And it was just what needs must.
Yes, absolutely. I think we got into a conversation about so let's rewind. Yeah. Tell me about We Are Boutique, what you do.
Okay.
And we chatted on the phone. There's some really fascinating business lessons that you've learned from this. One that I think possibly some business owners won't want to learn or go through, but let's hear about We Are Boutique.
So We Are Boutique is a channel strategy agency, so we take clients to market through our core disciplines in media buying and planning, digital marketing and PR. Mm-hmm. So our point of difference is that we position ourselves as a channel agency in that we work across all of those channels, so we work at a sweet spot in terms of working with clients to identify what their objectives are and then coming to a solution that isn't predetermined by the fact we are a specialist agency in one of those disciplines.
Right.
So there are a lot of media agencies, a lot of digital agencies, a lot of PR agencies, but we have specialists in all 3 of those divisions.
I like that.
So,
of course. How important is it to have that differentiator, that unique selling proposition for you?
Well, in our marketplace, massively, because it's a ruthlessly competitive space. So our heritage is in media. So my background is working in strategy in a media agency.
Right.
So our heritage is very much in media, but media is very commoditised. It's ruthlessly competitive, and there was no real point of difference. So I set up the agency to live out the name of boutique in that I wanted to have a more service-focused approach. We wanted to work closer to our clients. All the typical, I'm going to say naive statements that people make when they set up a business because they think people care about that.
Yeah, absolutely. We do great service. Well, hang on, that's not a USP. Because if you did crap service, that would be a real good USP.
Yes, it would. Yeah, it would be.
We will treat you like rubbish. Yeah. That's why you should come to us.
Yeah. So over the time, we had 2 or 3 years of really heady growth. There was clearly an opportunity there.
What made you actually take the plunge into your own business? Because that's quite a big decision.
Yeah, typical story of many other entrepreneurs that I suppose you speak to. If that is even a relevant word, I always wanted to do my own thing. I always thought I could do things better. That goes back to my first job when I was working in bars. I thought I was better than the manager. I worked in the hotel, restaurant, bar trade for 3-4 years. I climbed the ladder pretty quickly in that because I thought I was better. I was able to demonstrate I was better than other people. Mm-hmm. I was always I am ruthlessly competitive.
Right. So don't play football with you.
Yeah. Well, I've got 4 sons.
Oh my goodness!
Right. I don't let them win anything.
Oh my God. That's great.
And I think that just lived with me from a small age. I always wanted to do things better, so there was a natural path for me to. I was always going to work for myself. I think I knew that when I was 13. Typical story, selling sweets in the playground, selling knockoff watches that my uncle would bring back from Thailand.
We'll edit that out. Actually, that's quite funny.
And so I did all those typical things. And then when I found something that I really wanted to work in the space of working in agencies, I worked with some amazingly talented people, worked in business with us, up to 200 people at one point. And some really inspiring, brilliant people, and I was constantly soaking up from the very top. Yeah. There was always looking at the people that were right at the top.
That's a really interesting
good and bad people.
Yes, absolutely.
And learning so much.
So you were basically you were using your kind of employment to learn about the business, about the people, and about how to do things right and how not to do things.
Yeah, and
Very
I
clever.
worked with both. I worked with people who were amazing at everything from a leadership point of view to management,
I
clarity.
hate those kind of people.
Yeah, no, I hope
You're
when
irritating, aren't
I
they?
hope when I grow up I'll be one of them.
Yeah, me too.
But I also worked with pretty bad leaders who were very insular looking. They were very poor at feeding back and looking after people.
Yeah.
They didn't really have any clarity or vision as to where they were going. And I genuinely learned as much from those people. I found not to do things as much as I did the people who I thought were really good.
You raise an interesting point there. So about clarity and vision.
Yeah.
I'm guessing you had clarity and vision when you started.
No, I didn't.
We didn't?
No, I
Okay,
didn't.
right,
It's a
okay.
fascinating thing. So over the years, the things that we've refined as a business, I think it took us to about the 4th or 5th year to actually come up with a very clear statement of what our vision was. Up till that point, it was we would just wanted to be better. We just wanted to be bigger. If somebody had asked me where we were going, I don't think I'd have really known the answer. Other than I might have said something around we want to be X turnover by 2025, or but in terms of having absolute clarity that everybody in the business is aware of and can live up to, certainly didn't have that for the first few years.
So what was it that triggered you wanting to put a vision in place? So let's rewind. First of all, tell us about your first few years, and then we'll come to the tripping point as to why you decided to make a vision for your business.
So I've always worked with a lot of other agencies, complementary agencies. So we work across media, digital and PR, but we work with a lot of agencies who are creative agencies, branding agencies, advertising agencies. So we have complementary skill sets. So I have built up a lot of relationships and a good reputation in that space of collaboration with other agencies. So I knew that when I launched, there would be a lot of relationships that would bear fruit.
Yes.
So that gave me the confidence. So mine isn't a typical story of a desk in my grandma's back room, hoping the phone would ring. I kind of knew that when I launched, there was going to be some work for me there. I launched I was in the offices of another company, so
great.
Slightly different story. I didn't worry. I did worry a little bit, but not too much about the fact I've still got to pay my mortgage in 30 days' time.
Yeah.
Because I knew I was going to get business pretty quickly.
Yeah. And was that because you were... So what a lot of business owners forget about is they're really technically great, but they're rubbish at marketing and sales.
Yeah.
Which, in my opinion, and you probably agree, marketing and sales is fundamental to every business. It doesn't matter how great your product is, if you can't sell it, it ain't going anywhere.
Well, there's an interesting point in that actually, that for me, I realised that actually delivering the stuff, whatever it is that you deliver, if you're good at doing that, that's fine, it'll get you so far. But then you have to realise that to actually grow a business, you've got to have a sales function.
Yes.
So you've got to become very good at sales. That means being very good at marketing. That means having a very good, clear proposition as to who you are, what you are. So that was probably one of the first steps. So one of our first employees was a salesperson.
Good.
And so we became a sales-focused business.
Yeah.
Then I think when we got to about 15 people, we became, maybe a little bit less than that, we became a people business.
Yes.
And we're still in that space at 21 people. We are now a people-driven business.
Yeah.
So I think with different stages of growth, your business becomes something different.
Yeah.
So you go from being very much about the individual, the entrepreneur, you are everything, you do everything. So then having to get operational processes in place. So you now need a function for financial management. You need to be good at sales. You need more than you to do the doing. Then beyond that, you actually got to have a strong sales function. Then beyond that, you become and so I think with stages of business, it's different for different businesses, but you become focused on something very different.
It's a really good point. And I think one of the failings of a lot of business owners is to think they can just carry on the way they are and not change.
Yeah.
Because you can get to a certain turnover, like you said, with just doing these things.
Yeah.
But you need to change, evolve, grow, and the team becomes absolutely important.
So picking up on the beginning statement about some of the lessons I've learned, one of the lessons I'd learned, if I was to go back, is I would get a better senior management in place quicker. Yeah. Took me a while to stop trying to do everything. So the realisation of, as I gave up control, other people's performance increased.
That's really interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
And what are the problems with? I mean, it's fantastic to be that kind of person that does everything, but it doesn't empower the employees. It doesn't grow them. And that's interesting that when you started to let go, they start to step up.
Yeah. And one of the problems I found as my kind of personality type, I wanted to do everything, so that created a lack of clarity as to what everybody else was. So they all started to fit around me. So they were not necessarily doing what they were good at, so not playing to their strengths, which is critical. And they didn't have clarity of what they were trying to do either. So me stepping away, or me being focused on what I'm good at, allowed other people to focus on what they're good at.
Yes.
But getting a really strong senior management team in below me gave me the confidence to be able to focus on what I'm good at, and gave me the focus on getting the right senior management team in, knowing exactly what it is that we wanted from them. And you do always hit walls in business where what got you to here won't get you to the next phase.
Yeah.
And we've hit that twice.
Yeah. So just go through your turnover, because we mentioned the phone, that your progression.
Yeah. So I think it went something like 300,000 to 600 to 900 to 1.2 million. So they were kind of the milestone stages of growth. That's a slightly different business model. That's our income. Actually, our turnover is around 10 times that because of the nature of trading media.
Right.
So our turnover, when we're doing 1 million, we'll trade about 10 to 12 million.
Cool. So a lot of money there.
Yeah. So that was kind of the stages of growth. So not necessarily year-end points, but the points at which to get to 300 grand was different to get to 600 or 700 grand, which was different to get to 900, to get to 1.2 million. We've just come out of a wall. Having hit 1.2 million, we stagnated. Well, our growth was about 3 to 5%, but that, for me, that stagnation is a long way short of what we wanted.
And that's an interesting point, because what a lot of business owners don't realise, well, some business owners will say to me, well, we're staying steady at the same level. Well, they're not, are they? Because costs are always going up. The government are always, sorry government, but you are always taxing us more and more every single year. Yeah. So if you're actually there and the costs are going up, your profit margin is going down.
Yeah. And the idea that you're always going to retain the same level of custom, and you're going to do the same sales, if you're not feeding it, that just doesn't happen. A business that wants to stand still will go backwards. Yeah. That's my experience.
You're growing or you're dying in business, aren't you?
Yeah,
it's like a tree. They don't stand still. They grow or they wither. Yeah. It's as simple as that. Yeah. So sorry, you were saying, so you hit this kind of barrier where you felt you were stagnating, and you took a very interesting step, didn't you? Tell me what you did.
Well, I think we've hit a few different walls. So when we got, it was really about reanalyzing our proposition. So what we've done over the last 12 months, having realised that we were probably stagnating, but our costs have skyrocketed every year.
Really?
So we've done about 15-20% growth year on year, but our overheads have matched that. Yes. So as soon as you hit 1 year of being flat on income, but with 20% increase in overhead, that really bites you on the arse.
Yeah, it does indeed.
And so it took us a while to really realise what we'd caught a cold, and it was going to turn into flu if we didn't do something about it. Yeah. But it took us quite a long time to realise actually that isn't quite right, and we probably need to fix that. So a key part of that was about empowering senior management team. But we work on key pillars of our business, these pillars not necessarily right for everybody else, but we have pillars of growth, people, clients, finance and operations.
Excellent.
So within each of those we've got annual targets, and then every month we're reporting on measures within those targets.
Great, so you've got reporting in place, you're doing key performance indicators, and monitoring the growth in every area.
And members of the senior management team are responsible for a pillar each.
Brilliant.
That doesn't mean they have to complete all the actions in those pillars, but they're responsible for reporting into the senior management team on those pillars. Those targets are then shared across the agency, across the business every quarter, and then every month we have certain elements like projected income, that we will report on.
So that's really good. So every month you get given all your reports and you come up with your revenue. You'd be shocked how many business owners I talk to who don't know how much money they've made in the year until they talk to their accountant and realise they've made a loss. And they're not looking at their finances every single month and just making sure that they're past the break-even point, they're in profitability and things like that. So that's a really good point.
I saw something which was the key formula is marketing plus operations equals finance.
Yeah.
And that kind of lived with me for a little bit. So if we're good at marketing and operation, which bit do we need to improve? But then within that, there's more for us because we employ 20-somethings. So full of millennial generation, highly educated, highly ambitious individuals. So we've got to work really in a ruthlessly competitive space. We've got to work really hard to retain people at a high level of employee engagement. So people becomes a really significant pillar for us.
You mentioned engagement there.
Yeah.
I came across, there's an organisation called Engage and Grow who are kind of a big to action coach, and they did a survey over thousands of businesses across the states, and they came to the realisation that 70% of employees are disengaged, and of that 70%, 18% are actively trying to disengage others and destroy the company from within. 18%. Yeah. That's quite a huge proportion, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think having 80%, so funnily enough, we had our company away, we have 2 company away days every year, one in October, one in April. April is about the business, finance, growth targets, and the one in October is about people.
Yes.
So we had ours very recent last week, and we played back our employee engagement survey. But when I put my out of office on, my out of office said, did you know that 80% of all people in the UK are actively disengaged with their organisation? Yeah. So we're having an away day to ensure we're not one of the 80%.
Is that one of your techniques to try to get the engagement, is to have away days?
So we've got all sorts, and we're an agency, right? So we use all sorts of terms, and we can be very fluffy, but we have a joy squad. So the Joy Squad. The Joy Squad is a collective of people from across the business.
Joy Squad?
Yes, you can come to one of the meetings. The Joy Squad is a collective of people from across the agency who are responsible for uplifting employee engagement. So they take on requests from across the business or ideas that people have had. Yeah. They will discuss things that are going on. They'll identify initiatives, and then those things are either activated or, if necessary, they come to the SMT for our thoughts, comments, approvals. Some of those actions are actually actions for the senior management team.
That's really interesting. Now, a lot of small businesses would say that's a waste of time, but actually it's essential when you've got a team.
Yeah, okay, so the evidence to that is last year 100% of our staff were actively disengaged.
Whoa,
so
okay.
You need to. So we use Gallup's 12 questions. So Gallup Employee Engagement Survey. You need to get a score of 4 or above to be actively engaged. Right. Our average was 3.9, but collectively we had an actively disengaged workforce. 12 months later, with the implementation of the Joy Squad and a couple of other initiatives, we got to 100% actively engaged.
Wow.
And we shifted from a score, so our score shifted from 40, I remember this because we did it so recently, shifted from 44.4 to 49.7.
Right.
And you need 48 to be actively engaged.
So are you going to write a book on that? Because I think that's really good. Did you make up the Joy Squad, or did you get it from somewhere else?
Well, when we did the employee engagement because last year was the first time we did it. Right. So as I was saying about turning into an employee-focused business, we really have. So 12 months ago we did it, and the entire day that we had 12 months ago was. So here's the 4 key theories of employee engagement, which is around clarity, knowing what you're doing, playing to your strengths, playing in the right position, feedback and care. Right. So we identify there the 4 key meta themes. What do we need to do to shift us from this score to this score? Great. And so one of the actions that came out of that was a subgroup of people that would get together that would represent the agency for the state of the nation and to identify things that we might be able to do better, etc., etc. Turned into being called the Joy Squad.
And That's really exciting. Here's the interesting thing. I bet did you actually attend those, or did you just say...
No, I've never been in one of them. I'm not
That's
invited.
key. That's key, isn't it, I think?
Yeah.
Because you're empowering them
Yeah.
to run run the company and improve the company. You gave them the brief, well, kind of, they might have even come up with the brief themselves.
Yes.
And they're actively engaged in helping your employees become engaged. I think that's fantastic.
So, to show we care is to empower.
Yes.
So you've got to empower people for them to really, and to be able to play to their strengths. So we ensured that the people on the Joy Squad were those who, due to their strengths, were going to be able to appropriately contribute to that
Of course,
group.
yeah. You can't put the wrong people on
yeah,
the Joy
yeah,
Squad.
otherwise it
You can't
wouldn't-
put someone who's
yeah,
really
it
miserable on the Joy Squad.
Yeah.
It just doesn't work.
So we've got the right people who are part of that group. We've got other initiatives as well. So we've developed a CSR program. So we've got the right person leading that. So around our corporate social responsibility.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
But what that means to most businesses, they can tick a box to say we've got a statement that says we use as little paper as we possibly can, and sometimes we'll raise money for charity. But we've completely written our own that is very unique to our organisation. So we've got a programme of equality, diversity and inclusion, but rather than having one written for us, we've completely written what that looks like to be unique to our agency and what we want it to be and what we think equality, diversity and inclusion is for us. And so that, again, that came out of employee engagement. We've got an individual who leads on that. It's not her job. She's our social manager. But she's passionate about it, she cares about it. And so that, again, it's playing people to their strength and making them feel empowered. And doing something they really care about makes a huge difference.
It does.
Beyond the day job.
Just picking up what you said about putting the right people in the right place.
Yeah.
I've seen it so many times in companies where, for example, a salesperson is fantastic at sales, so they promote him to be the sales team leader.
Yeah.
And then it all goes crap.
Yeah.
Because, well, he doesn't have the skills to be the sales leader.
Yeah.
He's really good at sales, but
Yeah.
they didn't look at his personality and what he wants and how he can behave.
Yeah.
To either make him into the kind of person that could be the sales leader, or find someone who's better suited to be the sales leader, who can get the most out of the sales.
And that's a fascinating thing because everybody wants the next job, right? That's what people do.
Yeah.
So we have ladders from a graduate to a junior account exec to an account exec, but all the way through to department head, director of agency, department, etc. So we've got natural progression. So people just want to go on to the next step. Of course they do. That makes sense. They're more empowered, they get more responsibility, they're showing career progression, the mum loves the fact that they got a promotion, they earn more money. But that goes against, that whole theory goes against an individual playing to their strength and doing what they're good at. Particularly when you work in a technical environment. So we have people who are specialists in trading media. We have people who are specialists in technical SEO, people who are specialists in paid search management.
Yes.
So being exceptional at running a paid search account doesn't mean for a second you're going to be commercially astute, good at managing and leading people, good at client services, and that they're the things that you expect as people climb the ladder. So I like to think that I'm better at what I'm responsible for on this pillar of being the leader of the agency, the managing director of the agency, but I'd be absolutely useless an account exec in paid search. So, because I got there doesn't mean I needed to have done all of these jobs, because that's not my strengths, and so that's a real challenge. So in a small business, when you're trying to grow an agency and you want to support people and support them in their growth in any business, that naturally means that they get promotions. But that doesn't mean that they're the right promotions either for those individuals or for the business.
That's really, and the interesting thing about that is also giving people education and helping them and training them in whatever they want to learn about, and also obviously it needs to make sense for the business, doesn't it? I find is essential.
Yeah.
But a lot of business owners won't invest in their people.
Yeah.
And the reason that they give is they say, well, they might leave. So hang on, they might stay if
Yeah.
you don't invest in them.
Yeah.
Which could be worse.
Yeah.
A bunch of ignorant workers with no...
Absolutely.
So how do you then, because I mean, I've worked with companies who do kind of micro promotions or set incentives that are kind of give people a sense of progression, but they're not going up a ladder as such and distancing themselves from what they're actually usually really good at. How do you cope with that?
Well, we're literally right in the thick of that at the moment. So we have these natural progressions, but then realising actually what is right for the business and what is right for that individual, and how, and we're in the process of trying to find, is there a middle ground? Does it have to be a promotion? What's actually motivating them? Is it a job title? Is it responsibility? Is it money? Because they're three very different things.
Absolutely.
If it's about responsibility, then you can empower them, you can give them more work, they can be involved in more things around the business. If it's about because they want to be playing in their best position, want to be playing to their strength, then you can empower them, and it might be about, and you can recompense them for that, but it doesn't have to tie in with a change of title or a promotion. So we're just in that ground of trying to find those steps. So
trying to work out that way of...
Yeah, so we've been around for, I don't know what it is, so let's say it's 6 years and 9 months, and I've never been in a business that's 6 years and 9 months before.
No, I can
so
imagine.
of course I'm still, tomorrow I'm going to make up what it looks like 6 years, 9 months and 2 days.
Yes.
And so as you grow in a business, you're always having to change what you're doing. So we got into a real focus on people and making sure they were happy, and then realising now actually we've fallen short on training and development.
Yeah.
So we are developing people.
To do, isn't it?
People leave here better than when they came, but we haven't been as good as we could be at having an actual formalised process for learning and development. So we're going through that process at the moment. So it's those points when you realise actually we should have been doing this 6 months ago, 12 months ago. That is a key thing that always happens in business. When you do something, you realise we should have done that.
Yeah, that would have been
Back then.
really useful.
Wouldn't it be good if we did it then?
We wouldn't be in the situation we're in now. We'd have done this 12 months ago. But you know, hindsight is a great teacher.
And when you're growing a business, you've never done these things before.
No, exactly.
And so you have to learn by practice, and you have to make errors, and you have to make mistakes. When people join this business, I always do a presentation to them saying we will get things wrong, we will make mistakes. So try not to be too offended by that. Try not to see that as a negative or a failing, see it as a positive, because there's a learning process. We're not going to do everything when we've got 100% confidence it's going to be right. Sometimes, because that's how you have to be if you want to grow an entrepreneurial business, you've got to sometimes take the risk, and so long as people understand this might not work, generally they'll join you on that journey.
I like that principle, because you know, if employees are empowered to take risks within reason, obviously within limitations, if they can take risks and those risks pay off, fantastic. That grows a company massively. But of course, sometimes those risks won't pay off, and it'll be a mistake. And them having comfort knowing that you won't, like, you might do, but you won't hit them too hard at the back of the head, but that you're supporting them. And realising that these mistakes will be made, that's really refreshing to hear.
And I think that leads into the values. There are some businesses that if you worked in pharmaceuticals, you couldn't make risks. You couldn't take risks.
No, that's not a good idea, is it? With drugs and prescriptions and things.
So it's the nature of the business that you work in. We're in an environment where we can be risk heavy. And that can be empowering, and so yes, we do empower people to try things, try different things, and we're always trying to find different ways of doing things. We'll change the way that we do client services. You know, that's part of the course. I think that lives into, we call them principles, but generally values, and the way that people behave. And that's something, again, that we redefined those around 12 months ago, and they now really live out in the business. So when we do reviews and we're assessing people, We ask them to measure themselves against our values.
Excellent.
How are you performing? Demonstrate how you perform against these 8 values, and we will assess people against them as well. And we'll assess people from a recruitment point of view about, do we think they're capable of living out these principles?
What a great that's perfect. Yeah, so when you're in an interview, you're clearly stating the values of the company and asking, does any of this go against you as a person?
Yeah.
What a great idea.
And it doesn't.
Really
They're not always going to. People are not going to tick all 8 boxes. You might need, in a particular role, you need them to do those 2 things.
Yeah.
Somebody else will need to do these 2 things. But actually having them and knowing what you stand for and what you believe, you've always got that to come back to. Yeah. And so it sets a level of clarity and expectation for everybody who works in the business.
So that's really good. So one of the first things that get business owners to do is put together their vision statement, the mission statement, and the values for their company. Yeah. And what I found is that those businesses who have them, they become shelfware. And they don't help them to live and breathe on a daily basis. And it sounds like you're using it in the interview process, which is brilliant. Yeah. And they're using it in your reviews with your staff, so that's keeping it on their mind. Yeah. Is there anything else you do to try to keep them visible?
Well, we've got them plastered on the stairwell,
fantastic.
So people see every day.
That's great.
That can become wallpaper actually.
You kind of get used to it, and then you don't see it, don't you?
Yeah,
but that's a great idea. I love that idea.
I think it's the re-emphasising it all the time. So there's certain things we do always re-emphasise. So we have our pillars. Yes. So the business is assessed on the pillars, what our targets are, what our measures are. So right down to a Monday morning meeting, the entire agency gathers in a room, and we go through those pillars. So we will talk, what do people need to know about finance? What do they need to know is happening this week from a growth, marketing, new business sales? What do they need to know about operationally, what things might be happening, clients who's coming in, what meetings have we got? And so those things live out in the business. Yeah. I do find it difficult to live out that big, hairy vision on a consistent basis, but a key metric of employee engagement is people feeling aligned to it or feeling that what they do is contributing to it. And I think that's the critical point that people need to come back to. If you have a vision, are the people in your business actually delivering against it? It's a key measure of whether it's a reasonable vision as well.
I have found that I want to earn £3 million is not a good vision for the company.
So
no
we want to sell the business for £10 million.
Yeah, that doesn't work, does it? No,
that does not connect to everybody in the business. If you say we want to be the most famous independent agency in the UK, there's ours. That's then that ties with, I want to be part of that. I want to work in the most famous.
It's something grand and exciting.
What does it mean to be famous? If you're going to be famous, you're going to have to do really good work. Yeah. You're going to have to work with really good businesses. So it becomes meaningful. It's something that people feel connected to. It's been talked about a lot, but Simon Sinek's Why.
Yes, fantastic.
Again, why do you exist? Is that has to come from me, the vision comes from the top down. Yeah. But people have to align to it. Of course. The why has to come from the bottom up. That aligns with the people from the top. And I think that's critical. But how you actually get to live it out every day is difficult.
Yeah, of course it is.
And it normally comes out when you hit a challenge. Yeah. So we've got a challenge, we're not delivering great work on this, we've stagnated with results for a client, for example. Then we would go back to, in that case, we're not pursuing extraordinary for that client. So what do we need to do to be extraordinary for them? If it's not about the work we deliver, why is that? And so it gives you a point to go back to, because you've got to be doing it for a reason. You've got to why you do. It's not just delivering stuff for the sake of delivering stuff or to make money, because anyone can do that.
Yeah, there's lots of different ways of earning money. Yeah, you can stack shelves in Asda for that, can't you?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Maybe not earn as much money, but
that's true.
That's right. Yeah. Fantastic. That's really good. You know, it's been absolutely brilliant to talk to you. if there was one thing, the biggest lesson you've learned by owning your own business, what would that be? Do you think?
I would say put your business on one page of paper.
That's interesting.
So your vision through to your purpose. So for us, we've got a path, purpose, principles. So vision, your why, your values. Put it on a piece of paper and then have something that you're always going to measure yourself against.
Yeah.
If it's more complicated than you can put on a piece of paper, you've probably not got it right. And then when you do know what it is that you're trying to achieve, be assessing against it all the time and be ruthless about it. If there was one kind of behaviour or attitude that I think business owners have to demonstrate, it's ruthlessness.
Yeah. And so ruthlessness is sometimes portrayed as a bad attribute. What do you mean by ruthlessness?
It can be a bad attitude. It can be a bad trait. In that that might mean firing people.
Yes.
But that can be a positive in that will probably be a demonstration of strong leadership. If you're getting rid of somebody who wasn't good enough.
Mm-hmm.
If you say we're not going to do that because it doesn't align with where our business is going, people are then more likely to believing what you say about where your business is going.
Yeah.
If you say we don't do that kind of work, then you do, the whole thing doesn't really have any meaning anymore.
It'll be congruent with what you're teaching.
Yeah, and I think if you make a decision you're going to do something, then get on with it.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Don't toy with the idea for too long because the opportunity is lost.
So acting fast.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, and I guess when I say ruthlessness, I think a big piece of that is acting fast.
Yeah.
Don't get stuck in a decision of we could do this, we could do that. Once you make sure you get to a decision, and once you've got there, do something about it really quickly. Otherwise, if normally it's around problems, isn't it?
Yes.
And then those problems foster in a business.
Oh, they love to, they germinate, don't they?
Yeah.
They spread
Yeah.
like a massive
That
fungus.
one bad strawberry in a punnet.
Oh yeah,
When you've
that's
got
right.
that one bad strawberry. If you don't
I've had
get
that
it-
strawberry in my punnets.
Yeah, and
Awful.
and the whole
Oh
is
no,
ruined.
just go green in
If
no
you,
time.
if you don't solve that problem quickly, it spreads across the business.
Yeah.
And making those quick, ruthless, fast decisions is, in my opinion, leadership. That doesn't mean I've done it every time.
You know what?
But when you start the conversation about if I went back to the beginning, what would I do? It would be making those decisions quickly and doing something about it.
Yeah. I when you mentioned firing people, and that's a very difficult thing for any business owner to do. And one of the problems I find with a lot of business owners is that they start their business and they employ their niece who's been unemployed for 3 years because she needs a job.
Yeah.
And then they talk to their mate down the pub and he says he knows someone who's really good at so-and-so.
Yeah.
So they bring him along. And also their best friend they've known for 20 years, they get him or her on board. And what happens is after like a year or so they realise this is not working out.
Yeah.
And so that situation there where you've got family and friends who maybe have been with you for 3 years building this stuff up and you realise they don't fit in anymore, that makes it really difficult. But putting your values system in place and KPIs helps those people to leave naturally.
But when it's people decisions,
Mm.
it doesn't matter if you absolutely know the decision needs to be to remove somebody. So let's say a business needs to make redundancies. Be absolutely crystal clear you've got to make those redundancies. But doing it,
It's hard.
it's a horrendous
It
experience.
is a whole
And I think that's when having non-exec directors, having external consultants are absolutely critical because they then hold you accountable. Because everybody in a business is accountable up to a certain level.
Mm-hmm.
And then who are those people accountable to? And that's when decisions don't get made, actions don't get made. So having an external consultant, a non-exec director, and I guess the point about that is not being in the business.
Exactly.
So when you work in the business and you're with these people every day,
Yeah, exactly.
so the advice you would give to another business is always going to be ruthless.
It is.
You're always going to say, they sound like a
Honest-
rubbish sales
honest,
director, sack them.
Yeah, exactly. It's
But
funny,
when
isn't
it's
it?
that person, when it's them,
It's them.
they can't sack
They
their
can't,
sales
no.
director because they're
Because
too
it's
close,
Jeff.
too emotionally attached.
I've known Jeff for
Well, like
years.
Jeff.
We've been in the pub every Friday night with Jeff. I can't sack him.
And that, of course, that is absolutely understandable.
Yeah.
But is probably the biggest failing of all of my friends and other business associates. the biggest failing is in dealing with problems quickly and ruthlessly enough, because they're too close to it. Because they're in the business rather than working on the business.
Yes.
And I think that's where a critical role for external consultants, advisors, non-exec directors comes in.
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of the, obviously I'm a business coach, so I am that external, and one of the things, one of the massive things that we're able to give people, and you'll identify with this, is accountability.
Yeah.
Because the person at the top, they're not accountable to anybody. I mean, there's no board of directors screaming for this. There's no shareholders saying, we need the price up. And also sometimes they can't bounce ideas off anybody either, because you can't talk to the people who are in your business about issues, because, well, you just can't do it. Maybe you can't talk to your partner because, well, they don't understand, or and so you need that external party to bounce ideas off, hold you accountable, say, what are you doing this?
What's the worst that can happen? So if I decide, well, I should do that, but I'm not going to, what's the worst that can happen? I might lose some money, well, it's my money.
Exactly.
And we're profitable already, so if we're going to lose 10%, I'll suffer that pain of 10% loss of GP. But of course, if they were looking at another person's business and saying that will make you lose 10%, of course you wouldn't do it.
No.
So it's the accountability is because somebody is that the worst that can happen is very important.
Yes.
And normally they undervalue that, underestimate it, don't they?
Yeah. And what's your end point for your business? Where do you want it to? For you, where's it going?
For me personally, I always wanted to do something different when I was 45. So somebody once said to me, you're not one career, and I really believe that. I really like that idea. We get, so we start a job at 18, 19, 20, 21, or out of university, and then we do that till we retire at 60.
That doesn't happen, does it?
No. That's not for me. No. And I want to be able to do different things. So I always had a view that I would exit the business at 45. So the idea of the business is to realise 750,000 EBITDA in 2023.
Great.
That is my personal vision.
Yes.
And the vision of the company is aligned with ensuring that we'll get to that scale of growth, but with a bit more meaning to it than just financial numbers. Whether we got there, whether I would sell when I did actually get there, I don't know. I love what I do, but it does give me an absolute clarity of focus that's where I'm trying to get to. So the fact that I have that to come back to personally drives me in the decision making. And
so you got your clarity, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
Brilliant stuff. Hey, it's been fantastic to talk to you, son. Thank you so much for your time. Really
brilliant.
Good to talk.
Thank you very much.